This is Don't Panic, episode number 369, recorded August 28th, 2023. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Don't Panic, the technology podcast on gadgets, the internet, and of course, you. I'm Sean Jennings, joined by two guys who are real blasts from the past. It's Colby Rabidou and Dan Miller. Good evening, gentlemen.
Hello, Sean.
Good evening.
Good evening, gents. We have got a great show ahead of us here, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, we want to dive right on in because we got a lot to cover. Yeah. Now, we talked last week about the new format of the show where each week, each one of us is going to sort of come with a topic or an idea or something worth talking about. Last week was my week. Dan, it's your week. Do you want to explain the concept, the thought behind what we'll be doing tonight?
Yeah, so one of the theories behind our new format is that tech news has gotten more depressing or at least less interesting. And so to sort of investigate that hypothesis in this show, we will look at each of the years that this show, complete years that this show has been around, so 2014 to 2022 inclusive, and rank them gaming tier list style, where S is the best possible thing, A is the second next best thing, and D is the worst possible thing, because we grade on a curve here. And we'll go through each year in chronological order, and then at the end we can debate and maybe rejigger things. But I think it'll make a lot of sense once we get started.
I love it. I'm going to throw the our spreadsheet up for the folks at home to see.
This is probably the most amount of work we've put into a spreadsheet in the show's history.
Dan, I was very impressed because you were actually I started to go through the sheets and I said, screw that. I wasn't doing it. So I appreciate you going
I
through.
only went through about half of them before I realized I wasn't going to have enough time. And then I cheated and asked Google for top tech stories of X.
That's exactly what I did. Turns out people write those stories every year.
Oh, yeah.
So.
And now AI will be writing them.
Exactly. We should have just asked AI the answer. What was the best year in technology?
But its knowledge cutoff is, October 2021 or whatever.
Yes.
But yeah, so let's start at the bottom. 2014, obviously the biggest tech news story was that Don't Panic was a new podcast at the time, taking the world by storm.
Right.
Can you scroll down, Sean?
2013?
I was doing only full years.
Oh, okay. Well, then I didn't get to remember the very
you added 2013. Okay, let's do 2013. Let's do 2013.
I slipped it in.
All right, let's do 2013 real quick.
2013 here in our list. Facebook goes public. Musk announces Hyperloop to distract everyone for the much more realistic high-speed rail. That's actually a true story. Xbox One and PS4 announced. Snowden gets into his beef with the NSA. Chromecast was introduced, and then I just remember this very funny SpaghettiOs Pearl Harbor post on Twitter that still makes me laugh to this day.
So I will argue this year is pretty significant, not only because Don't Panic started, but I think the Snowden story really carries it quite a bit. That is a thing that we still talk about all the time. It seems super relevant. I don't know if that's enough for me to put it in A or in S, but I think I could argue for A. And this is with the context of having gone through a bunch of stories for all these years. There are lots of years where none of the stories mattered. So it definitely seems A to me.
Well, let me ask you this, Dan, just so we're on the same page here. What is your grading? What are we actually grading them on?
Interestingness.
So is that like uniqueness or?
It could be. I would argue that the iPhone 13 is not interesting. The Apple Watch is.
Yes,
sure. And to put them on that spectrum. The iPhone 13 is a great phone. And I would also argue that, something that crash and burn would also be interesting, even if it wasn't like a high quality product, like Twitter, Stadia, things like that.
If that's the case, then because I've obviously looked at all the other years, I was alive through them. Yeah. I think comparatively, I don't know that this is that interesting of a year. I mean, stuff did happen.
Xbox and PS4, that was exciting.
I don't think you'll get me over A. Maybe A. I might give you A. I couldn't go S on this year. I don't know, Colby. What do you think?
It definitely not. I don't think it's an S year. Dan, I think you're right. Like the Snowden stuff is pretty feels pretty impactful. Maybe I won't feel that way after we finish talking through other years. I'd go A on 2013. Is Dan stuck? He's so quiet.
He's just so mad. He's pissed. Look at him.
Yeah, right. He's so put off that you poo-pooed the year that he didn't even put in the spreadsheet.
I'm sick of him being so damn bossy. He's not the boss of me.
Can't take it.
Quick, Colby, let's do all of them before he comes back.
All right, lightning round.
He'll never know. Like, just start shouting out years and letters.
I think, Sean, do you have like, what's your favorite year?
I know what my least favorite year is. And that is probably 2021. I think was a bad year. Because COVID. But also it was the year of metaverse. It was the year of NFTs. It was the year of Windows 11, which is trash. It was the year of Twitter Blue. It was just the year the internet. Well, and this is around the time I started getting tired of tech news because it was just like, how internet scammers can rip you off more.
Right.
This was when crypto, like FTX, was sponsoring arenas. Like, it was just rough.
Yeah, the NFT phase was stupid. Club kind of dumb.
Yeah, I got an alert for a Twitter space the other day. I said, no, thank you.
Oh God, yeah.
Hard pass. Boy, though, if I had to say my favorite year, I kind of like. Boy, I don't know. I'm gonna think about that. Do you have any early favorites or bad ones that come to mind?
I think 2020 one of my favorite good years because that was the M1 year, and I think like that was I think something like it's kind of. I feel like I've never had a computer that didn't feel like slightly slower 3 years in it. And I don't know.
This is the first computer. Oh, go ahead. No, I was gonna say this is my M1 is the first computer I actually like shut down every time I finish using it because it takes so little time to boot back up. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's like, maybe we're still in the honeymoon period, and like 3 years from now, everything will be slow and terrible again. But I don't know. The one where it stopped matter.
Yeah, I mean, I also think 2020, arguably, you could say, was a push of technologies. 5G really started hitting the mainstream.
Oh, yeah.
The Oculus Quest 2 came out, which I would argue pushed VR, certainly maybe not mainstream, but into more homes than ever before. The rise of video chat as a result of the pandemic and remote work. I certainly think if you look at what year changed technology the most, I think you can make a good argument for 2020.
Yeah.
Well, since we have no idea when Dan's going to get back, do you want to just move on to 2014 and we'll get him back when we get him? Poor guy. All right. Here's some things that happened in 2014, in case you forgot. Google bought Nest. Facebook bought WhatsApp and Oculus. Steve Ballmer left Microsoft after the debacle that was Windows 8 and 8.1. Apple bought Beats, so we're starting to see that consolidation. Flappy Bird was popular for 5 minutes. The introduction of the Apple Watch. Also, the introduction of the Fire Phone from Amazon. Remember that?
Yeah.
It was also the year of Gamergate, boo, and the North Koreans hacked Sony. Yay? Question mark. How do you feel about 2014?
I mean, I guess the Apple Watch is in there. I saw the alternative phones era. So much hope, so much promise for an Android non-iOS smartphone, and yet,
I mean, we used to do stories on LG.
right?
Remember those days? Motorola.
Did.
Like it was back then.
Facebook buying WhatsApp and Oculus. I mean, I guess like Oculus is still a thing. It's still a thing, but I don't know. If 2014 middling year to me.
See, to me, it feels beefier than 2013.
I agree.
But I also don't think it's. I would put an S or an A on 2014. Dan is back.
I'm
Dan,
back.
while you were gone, we figured out all the years, so we don't.
Oh, we're done.
We don't need you. No. What do you think of 2014?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's stronger than 2013, and maybe I was wrong to put 2013 at A. Maybe it should have been a B. I definitely think it's stronger than 2013, which makes it, in my opinion, much stronger than some of these later years. So at least in A, I could be. Oh, nice graphic here. I could be comfortable putting it at S. But we can do that for now and see where we end up.
We'll keep shifting them around.
But there was a lot of lots of people were throwing their money around and buying stuff, and crazy stuff was happening during this time. Weather balloons and free internet and self-driving cars, and I mean, maybe the self-driving car thing is a little bit later.
Well, I think that's because arguably you could say 2016 is the year everything changed. But I think if we talk about 2015, I think there's a lot of blur between those because some of the ones on here, and I'll sort of half pivot us over to 2015, but things like drones. For the first time, the FAA allowed consumers, excuse me, to fly drones legally. Live streaming, Periscope and Meerkat sort of takes off to live streaming. A lot of the paid streaming video services start coming online in 2015. With cord cutting and all of that. Google became Alphabet because they were innovating so much. So I certainly think 2015 was also a pretty big year.
Yeah, but at least in my research, like, we didn't receive much benefit in 2015 as compared to 20. Well, I guess the Apple Watch kind of carries 2014 in that respect. But like, what cool new thing that I could actually use came out in 2015? I could pay for more streaming services.
You could get a drone.
I could get a drone. That's true. But the Apple Watch feels more impactful, more cool than drone.
Colby?
It's true. I'm still wearing an Apple Watch, and I don't have a
That's fair.
So I'd be comfortable putting it at B. It certainly was a good year.
Okay. I am comfortable with that.
Yeah, we'll see where we end up here. The relitigation at the end is the best part, really.
Oh yeah, we'll fight. 2016, the election.
Right.
Dum dum dum. The year we were broke. It was just funny because it's like, it seems much, considering that was only our third or fourth year of doing the show. We've done more years after it than before it, but it doesn't feel that way.
No.
It feels like every year after has been that year.
I do think though, in here, I mean, we one of the comments we made that year was when Apple became boring.
Which
where
was actually funny because that is riffing on a thing that you had said the year before, which was that Apple became boring.
yes, and I was wrong.
Well, I
But
think that like 2016 to 2019 period was relatively boring.
fair. But I think a lot of oxygen was taken up in 2016. I don't think there was a lot new.
Yeah. The thing that I found interesting, and again, this isn't about which one was, the better year in terms of human history, but the thing, I think there was a lot of interesting tech political crossover in 2016 with the, I don't know where the fake news stuff starts, but that was 2016 or 2017. But that was sort of happening. The Apple
Russian
FBI
hacking.
encryption thing was happening. The fallout from Snowden was still happening. At this point, you're starting to get into something that comes up a lot more later, this sort of bipartisan, quote, big tech breakup thing, which was an interesting point of unification during this time period. But to go back to my previous thing, what came out here that I was actually able to use that was fun? Not a lot, but I do think it was interesting, at least. So I could put it at B. I could be talked into C.
Colby?
C. Terrible year.
Oh,
Okay.
oh, right in our first C year. I wonder if we'll get to a D year. Or we could even create an E year. That's very hard to say. Well, let's roll up to 2017. Crypto is starting to heat up, just like Samsung Note 7, which literally explodes. The introduction of the iPhone 10, or the iPhone X, as I still call it. Amazon bought Whole Foods, and Nintendo introduced the Switch.
Nintendo Switch, good call.
And net neutrality repealed officially as one of the early acts of the Trump administration. What do we think of 2017?
I think 2017 is kind of. I feel like it's the. Obviously this started like maybe the year before with the election, but I feel like in dealing with the consequences, it's when like bastions of social media like sort of started to lose their sheen a little. Or maybe a lot, but that is all, since then, that is all really snowballed, I guess.
Yeah, all these Twitter stories we talk about every couple months owe them their existence to this year and the year before.
Right.
I think I would put 2017 over 2016.
I agree. Because there are two things in here that I really like that were really exciting. The iPhone 10 was really exciting. Nintendo Switch was huge. Both of those things were really great. And there are lots of interesting news stories to talk about. I could be convinced to put it in A.
I think I could too.
I'm not opposed to A.
I'm fine with B. But I'm curious.
No, I'll back you up.
Okay.
I'll back you up. No, Dan, I repped for Dan. Whatever that means. Well, 2018, Fortnite hit the stage and exploded. Just in addition to the startup Movie Pass, remember that? It was also the year the first foldable phones ever were announced. Turns out they were very bad and didn't work. It was also the rise of those stupid electric scooters that everyone leaves around everywhere. Cambridge Analytica, folks remember that? The big data leak out of Facebook when we started to get a little serious about GDPR and some of these privacy-related things. In our notes here, it was labeled the year of the subscription, which sounds like something I would write.
I think it was Dan, Colby, Sean in each of these. But in our original documents for our end-of-year wrap-ups, I didn't think they were labeled. but then I realized they were. But before I saw the labels, I instantly knew for each year who wrote which one. So we all have very distinctive writing voices.
That we do.
This was also the year where like the people who work at tech companies were becoming a lot more activist with regard to like working with China and working with like the U.S. government and the like the drop ice contracts and stuff like that, which was a very new thing, at least publicly, and then led to like the later on like unionization stuff. It segued into the work from home stuff. So yeah, and Cambridge Analytica was great. MoviePass was great. When was the stupid trivia app thing? What was that app
HQ
called?
Trivia?
HQ Trivia.
That's a good question.
2017.
Scott, it was 2017, and it was Scott Rogowski. I like Scott Scottman though. They actually did a documentary on Max about HQ. I haven't seen it, but I guess the story's that interesting.
Interesting. But when was that most popular, I wonder? I'm curious. Well, it started doing international in 2018.
Oh,
so.
the app's record high of concurrent players was in March of 2018.
There we go. So we can add HQ to that.
It was like 2-point-something million concurrent players.
So yeah, this also seems like an interesting year, more interesting than 2016. Is it more interesting than 2014 and 2017? I don't know.
Now I gotta look back at. Honestly, Dan, I gotta go back because I think 2014. I'm gonna buy back into your argument that it really should be an S year.
Okay. On what basis?
Well, and you guys can tell me I'm wrong, because as I'm looking at these upper years, it's a lot of like vague, boring stuff that happens. But you're right. 2014 is actually like practical stuff that happens. And it's not just stuff, it's stuff that matters. Rather than sort of more nebulous stuff. Like it's a little more like I look at some of these and I'm like, I don't remember that, or like I don't care about that. But I look at 2014, I'm like, all of this is relatively interesting. But tell me, listen, you can disagree.
No, I think
Colby's
it's true.
The,
I'm the decider. No, that it's still a part of our lives too, right? Like,
yeah,
it's not like, I guess the
except the Fire phone,
right? I mean, the Fire phone and
that
Flappy
was also
Bird.
of its time. We should have included Facebook's phone. Weren't they making a phone?
Yeah,
everybody had a phone.
Yeah,
right.
That was exciting.
It was exciting.
Imagine if some new company came out today and was like, we're going to build a new phone with an entirely new operating system. It would be the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard of.
To be fair, it was kind of ridiculous back then. But yes, I agree with you.
But it felt possible. I don't think it was likely, but yes. I was like, I see how if you had more money than God, you would try to make a phone at this time. It does.
Listen, a phone comes out now running Android. I think it's ridiculous. So never mind your own operating system.
Okay. So where does that leave 2018?
Oh, I put 2018 in the A tier.
Okay. Scroll back to it real quick. Yeah. Yeah, it felt like it. I think it felt like 2017, but more concrete also. But 2017 did have real products.
But we put them both in A.
Yeah. Okay. I would like to come back to this, but we can keep going for now. Because the fact that 2017 had real stuff that you can still use today, whereas 2018 felt a little bit like, woohoo, like, what if we did this? HQ. But I think philosophically, 2018 had much more interesting stories, but it does fall down a little bit on the...
So do you think 17 should go up or 18 should go down?
don't know. Maybe I could argue that 18 should go down, but I don't feel that strongly about it.
Okay. Well, we can keep going and
Let's keep going.
adjust
Yeah,
later.
I think they're both really interesting, but for totally different reasons, which makes them hard to rank against each other.
Very fair. Well, we'll see if we get a pile up in A when we move into 2019. As time goes on, guys, we have the AirPods Pro. We have Google Stadia and streaming games. T-Mobile and Sprint merge. Disney enters the streaming wars, dropping Disney Plus. We also get the announcements of PS5 and Xbox Series X. WeWork and Theranos both implode. These unicorn scams. As I wrote here, tech geniuses are secret dumb guys. I stand by that. Maybe more than ever.
Oh yeah, you were prophetic.
I was early in on tech geniuses are really secretly dumb guys. Yeah, any thoughts on 2019? I did put the picture of, do you remember this?
No, is that the Twitter default profile picture?
No, this was an Instagram account called World Record Egg, and it existed solely to get this egg to 1 million likes or 10 million likes or something like that. It was a meme for about 5 minutes.
I don't remember that.
I don't.
You can look up World Record Egg. It's still, the account still exists. You can still go like it.
Amazing.
I find 2019 very underwhelming. WeWork and Theranos were fun, but honestly, like now with some of the not the bias of hindsight, the gift of hindsight. What's the phrase I'm looking for?
Yeah, I think it's the latter.
The PS5 not nearly as important as the PS4. I think. What interesting thing has the PS5 done for us in the last 4 years? Nothing.
And that's why we got to vote it out of office. No,
Yeah.
that's something else.
Disney Plus, huge. I think for some people the AirPods Pro are huge. I've never been able to really use them because they squeeze out of my ears too easily. So yeah, it's just pretty underwhelming. Like I think the Ukraine Russia stuff was kind of interesting, but was it more interesting than the same sorts of stories in 2017 and 2016? I don't think so. So I'm doing C or D on this.
Wow. Colby?
At least though the PS5 and the Xbox were exciting at the time for what we thought they could be. And
sure.
Maybe I shouldn't judge them on what they ended up being. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're fine. I just feel like you're right.
It's fine. It's an iPhone 13. It's like fine. If you were to buy a video game console today, obviously you should buy one of those. But it doesn't feel like, oh my god, like.
But
Dan,
you didn't want 8K ray tracing?
It turns out no. I don't think so. Maybe I'm getting old, but I was thinking about this like since the PlayStation 5 came out, what game has come? There's been one game that came out that, and I think it wasn't even only available. Was the dinosaur robot game also available for PS4? What is that?
Horizons?
Horizon
yeah.
Zero. What's it called? Forbidden West.
The new one. The new one is Forbidden West.
The new one. And is it available on PS4?
Yes.
Yes, it is. So there has not been a single game that I've wanted to play that is only on the PS5 so far, and we're on year 4. Meanwhile, the Switch, every year there's at least one new Switch game that if I had infinite time, I'd love to play. And so the Switch, I think, way more impactful than the PS5. That's my hot take on that. I haven't turned my PS5 on in months. And when I did, it was to play like a silly co-op game for 3 days before we finished it. That was free on that monthly, yearly subscription thing I should stop paying for.
Right. I still turn my PS5 on pretty regularly because I still haven't finished Horizon Forbidden West. So, once or...
And there's an expansion now.
Right. I'm nowhere. I don't even think I'm near campaign in the first one. Every once in a while I turn it on. I do one little mission, and then
4 years into
still
the
there.
PS4 was 2018. We had like The Witcher, there was the Spider-Man game. There's multiple really good games that were only available on the PS4 and not on the PS3. So it's disappointing to me. But I've been talking too much.
Well, I think 2019. So I'm looking at the years ahead of us. I think are all more interesting than 2019.
Yep.
I think what I'm trying to figure out is which is worse, 2016 or 2019. Because I think one of them deserves to be in the D tier. I don't know about both.
what's 2016 again?
Yeah.
Apple, FBI, Snapchat. Oh, the election. I think the election is more interesting than 2019.
Well, but from a tech perspective, I mean, yes, I think this is Dan. You were getting to this. Are we talking about the year? Or are we talking about the year in technology?
The year in technology, yeah. I mean, there were interesting things about the election
Sure.
with emails and
Oh,
social
her-
media
her-
and all
her
that
emails.
fun stuff.
That's
Uh,
true.
Emails.
So maybe 2019 is more
which
boring.
year was the Samsung exploding phone?
That was 2017.
That was 2017. Okay. Yeah, then maybe we move 2016 down to D. It's smaller too. I like that.
How embarrassing. Well, this is good. We at least now have 1 year in every tier, so we've
Yeah.
filled that out
Got
respectively.
some
What about 2020? Obviously, biggest news of that year, and it's not even close. Quibi collapsed. It was there, and then it wasn't. Gosh, what a shame. No, obviously the pandemic. We did see some new things though. Apple Silicon for the
Mhm.
first time hitting M1, hitting computers. 5G really hits its stride. You can actually start buying phones and using it. Microsoft acquires Bethesda. Oculus Quest 2 was released. The rise of Zoom and video chat and work from home all happened that year. The proposed TikTok ban. Dan, while you were gone, Colby and I were sort of talking about, what was the worst year and what was the best year, potentially, just in our opinion, not necessarily for this. And I said 2020, I think, may be the most impactful year in this sheet, in my opinion, because
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
I agree. I think if you look at the kinds of things that happened in this year and you compare it to 2014, they're just as good, if not better. Like I think we'll be talking about Apple Silicon for many years to come. Oculus Quest 2, while maybe, not the same kind of hit as other tech products, would the Apple VR thing exist without the Oculus Quest 2? And it certainly made it much more mainstream than it ever has been before.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And,
I mean,
this year has a little bit of everything. It's got the anti-big tech stuff, plus a bunch of acquisitions, kind of like we had in 2014. All the remote work stuff starts to happen here. So yeah, I think this is an impactful year.
S tier.
Heck,
Go ahead, Colby.
I was just gonna reaffirm things we've already said.
That's why you're my best friend.
Screw.
Just keep reaffirming the things I say.
Sean, you're correct.
Yes, I love it. My head just keeps getting bigger. I'm gonna need a bigger frame on the camera. Well, let's go into 2021. Dan, while you were gone, I also called this the worst year of technology, or certainly my least favorite.
Oh, interesting.
Not to reiterate all my points for the people who've already heard it, but this was the year all the bullshit, I think, all the scammy, like NFTs, crypto, Twitter Blue, Windows 11, which is trash. I think just overall, I think 2021 was the year where it was like, I think it kind of stopped being a little bit fun for me. Now, did I think it was interesting? very much so.
Yeah, I see your point. For me, a thing that buoys this is while Apple Silicon was exciting, like a lot of people, including me, waited for the even more capable chips to be announced, and so these are the computers I use today: the M1 Pro, the M1 Max. So that buoys this year. But without that, I think it's kind of like one of those other years where there's a lot of philosophically interesting things here. Like I find it very interesting that you can go back and look through our show notes and find like Microsoft announces that remote work is permanent, and Facebook announces that they're not going back to the office, and all of those things are reversed. So I think that was very interesting. All these trials concluded during this time, very impactful. Apple versus Epic and Google versus Oracle. Facebook rebranding to Meta. So I think there was a lot to talk about, which was nice. I don't think we were bored on this show, but there was, with the exception of AirTags, which I use and love, and the laptops, which you could argue really were announced the year before. There weren't that many exciting things that I still use today, but it was an interesting year. So I don't think I could go below B for 2021 because it was interesting and I liked the things that were announced. So I continue to use, but I could be argued either way.
Colby?
I definitely don't think 2021 was like bad. Snow 2016. But I don't think it's awesome. B feels okay to me.
My inclination was A, but I'm totally fine with B.
We could go A.
Because I think my
NFTs
problem
versus
is
a whole thing.
because to me, I'll be upfront about this. To me, it was going to be 2021 A, 2022 B right behind it. But I'm curious your thoughts on 2022. Elon Musk buys Twitter, then he doesn't, then he has to, and then he ruins it. Google Stadia shuts down just a couple years later. ChatGPT and the rise of AI to make everything even more confusing. Crypto collapsed, making a bunch of fools out of all the celebrities who endorse them. Microsoft, it should say, tries to acquire Blizzard Activision.
Right.
It's still not a thing.
Announces intent to acquire.
Yes.
Yeah.
Still a fight. We get a lot more intercompany fights as Apple adjusts their privacy policy so Facebook can't advertise as easily. We also see Apple versus Epic was in 2021, but we saw it carry into as governments attempt to open up the App Store and in-app payments. Guys, what do we think of 2022?
I think like one of those other years, maybe I guess it was 2021. What saves this year for me at the moment, and we don't quite have the gift of, what is that phrase? I can't remember it. We don't have the gift of looking back with a lot of time
Hindsight.
yet. Hindsight. Maybe it's the gift of hindsight. We don't have the gift of hindsight with 2022 quite yet. But at the moment, it seems like the generative AI stuff is fundamentally useful in a way that NFTs and crypto and internet balloons and Amazon drone deliveries, which I think every year we've had a story about Amazon drone deliveries, and I still haven't had shit delivered by drones by Amazon, and they're right down the road. They can't even deliver it here. So that helps this year a lot. Without that, I think it's kind of a worse 2017, 2018. But crypto collapsing was fun.
Yeah, NFT as well collapsing, and a lot of those people getting their comeuppance right before they flipped over to AI and made a bunch more money. So,
yeah. Maybe it's maybe Dan's right about not having high. I don't know what I mean.
Do we create a new tier called I don't know?
Yeah, right. The I tier. I don't know. Like I still don't know if ChatGPT is, the generative AI stuff is. Maybe it's just the new crypto, and Be like, that was stupid. But maybe not.
I think
It can
I
do
would
stuff
argue
in
that
a way that crypto does not do.
I would argue that it is fundamentally useful because a thing that it can do really well. Here's my pitch to the programmers out there. With this technology and when it becomes widely available, which is only a matter of time, and when it can run on your laptop, you never have to learn regex or sed or awk. You just say, here's a bunch of bullshit. I'm going to give it to you in plain English. Do this simple transformation that I can easily check. Remove all the white space in the leading lines of every line of this text document. Boom. It can do that. Convert this JSON into YAML. It can do that. And I think other people will find situations where it's like, convert my citations from MLA to Chicago style. Like, they can just do that. And I think that is fundamentally interesting. I don't think it's going to lead to a world where AI is taking our jobs, but I think, like in 2014, this will be a thing we'll be using 10 years from now every day, but it's only one thing. So I don't think it rises to the 2014, 2020 level. And so I could go between A and B. But I think the rest of the stories were such bummers that it does, like, all the rest of it was sort of like political infighting in various ways. So I could be dragged down to C, but I don't think it's a D tier year, if only because of ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So let's.
It's a nice, somewhat normal distribution.
Yeah, it's a little tipsy, but it's not too bad. All right. Well, that sums up our tiers here, guys. Is it should we? Well, let me recap first, then we can talk about how we feel about it. At the bottom, D tier 2016 All Alone, and right above that in the C tier 2019. All jumbled up at the B tier, a couple of perfectly fine years: 2013, 2015, 2021, and 2022. In our A year, the back-to-back 2017 and 2018, pretty good run. And in our S tier, our top tier here is 2014 and 2020.
2020.
Let's take another pass at the things in the B tier and see if they all do seem kind of similar.
All right, well, we'll start at 2013 and then right above it, 2015. I don't think I get both of them on the screen at once. We're so close.
I think 2013, really? Like, 2013 with Snowden and PS4, Xbox One, which are actually impactful things. I don't know. Okay, so that's 2013.
Yeah.
And then 2015 was in that year. Yeah, I think 2013 is definitely better than 2015.
That is so funny. I feel the exact opposite way.
Oh.
I really do feel, but that's because you and I care about different stuff, which is why
Yeah.
you're great, Dan. Because you're the guy who's like, yeah, Snowden and NSA, like, and I'm like, I don't care how
What
that.
do you
changes
care
the
about in
world
2015?
entirely. I think it is some of the practical. It's live streaming. It's paid streaming expansion. It's
But
the drones.
live streaming went nowhere. No one live streams anymore. It was, but I guess it was exciting at
Twitch?
the time. You're right. You're right.
I know. I do. It never became massive, but I do think it's
I
become
think Twitch
so
became
subtle.
massive. No, your
No.
Twitch argument is convincing me.
But I guess the real question is, what does Colby think?
Not 2015 or 2013.
Yeah.
Do they seem equivalent or do they seem different?
I
Can't forget about the SpaghettiOs post either. That's
different. I kind of think that. I kind of agree with Dan that 2013. 15.
I'm not going to fight you.
Because talking about the PS5 in our discussion definitely casts a different light on the PS4. Like I think the Snowden stuff was like like a beginning of the like, oh, like maybe this whole internet thing is complicated. Is it like we didn't super think about maybe. Like, you know, maybe it's on the same timeline as like later years where we talk. I forget what the inciting incident was, but you know, all this social media like kerfuffles and like Cambridge and all that jazz.
Well, I bumped 2013 up to A, so
Okay.
we're a little more
Right.
even here.
20. So
Right.
we've examined 2015. We think it's have we examined 2015? Maybe we haven't.
Yeah, well, that was the one we just talked about.
That was the one. Okay,
with the,
right.
Yeah.
So let's compare 2015 to 2021.
Well, 2021 was all of these things.
Yeah.
I would argue that I would say this is 2021 is more than
2015 or 2021 is more than 2022.
Yeah. I kind of do feel that way.
Interesting. What makes you feel that way?
I think we talked about it in 2022 where it's like it feels a little light. Like stuff certainly happened, but it felt more like the runoff of 2021.
Yeah.
The only saving grace is the AI stuff, but I also feel like a lot of that didn't really kick in until 2023.
Yeah, that was barely 2022. You're right. Okay, I can move 2022 down to C. That's okay with me if it's okay with everybody else.
Yeah.
Look at that. That's beautiful.
Great distribution. So now we've got 2016 at D, 2019 and 2022 at C, leaning into the argument that tech news isn't getting less good, with 2021 in B along with 2015, and our best years are behind us, A, with 2013, 2017, and 2018, and S with 2014 and 2020.
2020 only just happened, but yeah.
But that was a unique circumstance, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So do we think this trend will continue, or is this temporary?
Well, what has even been the news like this year so far?
I mean, this year, lots of AI stuff, the Apple headset.
Yeah, all the Twitter X stuff.
Right. I think, and again, we've talked about this, and Sean, you disagree. I think the social media diaspora, I still feel like we're going to be feeling the effects of that in terms of social media going forward.
Huge story this year. No doubt about it. I mean, you look at Threads, setting a record and then like totally imploding because nobody cared. Yeah, I agree. I think it's been an interesting year so far. I just think it hasn't been a very consumer interesting year.
Yeah. The social media stuff. So I think I mentioned this before, but it has continued to be true. I really like where I'm at right now, where Instagram is where my friends are.
Mm-hmm.
Mastodon is better LinkedIn for programmers, where you can post random stuff and there are furries there sometimes. Blue Sky is where you go to see the memes and people dunking on people, which is its own kind of blood sport, but people like that. And Threads is where all the professional people are, like all the journalists and politicians,
the brands,
are all on Threads and brands. None of them are on Blue Sky. None of them are on Mastodon. So I will go to Threads once a night, and I can read all the tweets from your or whatever posts, strings from my local politicians and the journalists. I go to Threads more often than I go to Blue Sky just because I'm sort of soured on the blood sport. And I use Mastodon all the time. I'm much happier than I was on Twitter, where I'd be going to Twitter. I was drawn there because it was better LinkedIn for programmers, but they would show me Donald Trump in this. Look at this person. They wore the wrong pants. Let's make fun of everybody. Thousands of people make fun of them. That doesn't happen on Mastodon. So I hope to continue to be feeling the effects of 2023 for that stuff going forward. But the jury is obviously still out.
I use Facebook more than I used to for local stuff, for local groups, local businesses.
Yeah, same here. Actually, there's lots of giving away stuff that we've been using Facebook for. Yeah, I use Facebook more this year than I have in the past 4 years, probably.
Well, Dan, if you have stuff to give away, our fans are thirsty for giveaways.
Well, if anyone out there is in the Seattle area and needs a wheelchair or any other sort of disabled equipment, please.
Dan will break your legs for you, no problem.
Please. It's burning a hole in my pocket.
No, this is great. What's going to be nice is I think at the end of this year and future years, we'll update this tier list with the years as we wrap them and see how they compare.
Yeah. This was a lot of fun.
Great topic, Dan. This experiment 2 weeks in is going well.
Crushed it.
That was a lot of fun.
Do we know what we're doing next week?
That's up to the Colbster. Colby, do you know what you got on deck for us next week?
I think so. If you guys are with it.
Is this your yes, your Antarctica blog?
Oh, right.
It's so weird.
I'm excited for this.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Do you have any asks, any homework you'd like us to do, Colby?
I think I would just like you to peruse. There's a bunch of posts. I think you should and just pick one post that speaks to you in some way.
Okay, pick one post that speaks to you.
I don't know that this will be as what we did tonight. But I think we classic pre-show shooting the breeze and then just look at some pictures of cold stuff.
It's fantastic. So if anyone wants to do their homework ahead of time, the blog is brr.fyi, the Antarctica blog, about working in Antarctica. And we'll talk about next week. This is fun. I look forward to reading this. Excellent. All right. Well, we got to start wrapping it up here, guys. Before we get to all the nitty gritty on this show, I have to remind you our Cherry Coke Summer is happening over at UpForDebate.tv. We just published a brand new episode on Blade Runner. And Matt and I watched the classic. And spoiler alert, I thought it was weird. I have lots of opinions. Most people won't agree with. I recommend you guys check that out. The week after that, we'll be doing Patriot games. After that, Call of the Wild to wrap up our Harrison Ford summer. And guys, I'll tease you right now, I'm hoping this fall is going to be the return of Sean Tember, or maybe Sean Tober, or possibly Sean Vember. I haven't decided yet. But there will be a month where I'm picking the topics, and I've already got some ones on my mind to torture Matt with. So never been a better time to check out UpForDebate.tv or subscribe wherever you get podcasts. Just look for Up for Debate. Of course, this show is Don't Panic at don'tpanic.io. All the episodes are there, audio, video, the whole 9 yards. Be sure to check out the video. As we move on to these topic-based episodes, we're using screen share a lot more, so you can see what we're talking about as we're doing it. Never been a better time to check out the YouTube version. Of course, the audio version wherever you get podcasts. Just search for Don't Panic. Don't Panic Show at gmail.com or Don't Panic Show on Twitter, X, I should say. Should we get a Mastodon account or a Blue Sky? Dan, where should we get our next account? You're the expert.
We should start.
I'd love to be hosted there.
Free time, we could do that.
All right.
One of us needs to quit their job because I've noticed that the only time anything happens infrastructurally with the show is when someone quits their job. So.
Yeah, let's not. I'll create us an account on Yo. Another one that came up in my
2014 thing, I think,
in my archive search. Yik Yak or any of these other defunct services. So definitely check us out there. And that's going to do it for tonight. So on behalf of Colby and Dan, I'm Sean. We appreciate you guys being here. We're going to see you next time for another great episode of Don't Panic. And my cat's ass is blocking the hang up button, the stop button.